Let's talk a bit about developing the lifestyle that you want. So we get a lot of questions in on various newsletters. In fact, all of my newsletters go to the same high-income professional, somebody who's been trapped in an office for a while, who finally wants some freedom, personal freedom. They want food security. They want to relax. Now, they don't necessarily want to start a farm, but they want the concepts necessary to have the lifestyle that serves their mental health, physical well-being, and overall longevity. So I'm Justin Hitt with Inside Strategic Relations, and I guess since I'm here on location at Prosperity Homestead. Now, what do I mean by on location? Well, last night I was a little late feeding the animals. So I was over here, I'm taking care of this piece of property. Now, again, you don't have to own property, you can be taking care of property or whatever, but essentially, I got in here about 7, 8 o'clock at night, maybe earlier than that, I don't really remember, but the animals needed to be fed. And so I brought a laptop, I brought myself, I didn't even bring a change of clothes. I'm wearing my my gardening outfit. And ultimately, by the way, this is not a fashion channel, as you can tell, essentially, I stayed the night. I fed the animals, got them taken care of, make sure everybody's doing okay. And then I just simply stayed the night. Now, before I went to bed, I had some things to catch up on. Emails, different types of different things, because I write newsletters. So I have to write I don't have to. I write articles, I record podcasts, I check on the YouTube stats. Those are things that I don't mind doing. Now, when I was sitting in an office, or actually I usually worked remote, but when I did sit in an office, I had a different kind of pressure because there were tickets coming across the desk. There were a lot of people screaming, "Where's this going? What's happening here?" Or we'd have outages because I worked in IT services and then in risk management. So we'd constantly have these fires. So the point I'm making is that you don't have to live that way. In fact, you can just develop is a key word here. You can develop a lifestyle that better fits your well-being. I worked in an office in Raleigh, North Carolina, and there were probably 1,000 people in the building. It's a massive building, and it was kind of an like a cubicle farm. Like there's cubes everywhere, and as far as you can see, there's cubes. And I was doing DNS services for AT&T and IBM, and we were serving some pretty sophisticated environments. And then other people in the room were doing network services and systems administration and stuff like that, and project management, risk management on the IT side. And one of the things about that environment, I think I was down there for 9 months on a contract, is that every so often, somebody would stand up from their desk and they'd either grab their chest or they'd grab their crotch area and they would scream, "Ah!" and then fall down. Okay, I'm not kidding you. Every so often, there was somebody in the office that either had massive kidney stones and would crawl up under their desk and curl up in a ball and scream. And you could hear it everywhere. It's like, "Ah!" It was like purgatory. Every so often, it's like scream, or they'd have a heart attack. And then we had a procedure for this. We had a protocol. We'd follow the protocol. We'd call the ambulance. First we had to call the front desk, and then we would call the ambulance and tell them what zone the person was in. And then we were supposed to go back to work. And I remember thinking about this. Literally, there'd be somebody on a headset and a phone call, and a guy on the other side of the desk would stand up, grab his chest, fall over on his chair, roll onto the ground, and just be in tremendous pain. And the person would say, "Please hold for a moment," dial the front desk, and just do the process. And again, the process is good to have because it makes sure the person gets the medical help that they need. But what about the environment? The environment is so bad that literally every week, once or twice, somebody in that building, now it was multiple floors and there's about 1,000 people in there, probability wise, perhaps it was just slightly elevated, but it was two things: heart attack or kidney stones. Now those are from sediment lifestyle. We essentially are eating our lunch in front of the computers. We're essentially constantly on call. We would do 72-hour shifts to maintain things. And if you've experienced that lifestyle, then the ability to just wake up and pretty much put on pajamas and wander around, feed the animals. And then, I'm going to do a podcast video. I'm going to answer some questions that came in on the newsletter. I'm going to go ahead and maybe go out and eat some breakfast. Now, I'm not retired. Don't get me wrong. I still have to work for a living, and I enjoy working for a living now, though, because I'm choosing more of what I get to do. So first off, I was grossly overweight. Actually, is a time in my life where I was grossly overweight, had a 60% chance of a fatal heart attack, even couldn't mow my grass because I couldn't get up and down the steps. So I had to live on the main floor, or I had to walk around the house and come in the back door because going up and down the steps would wear me out. And I would literally walk from the front door around the house to come in the back door if I had to go downstairs. And then I had to sit on the floor when I got to the bottom and recover from walking around the house because I had just not taken care of myself. I had a heart issue. Now, again, disclosing this puts me at risk of not getting one of these wonderful IT jobs or these wonderful corporate jobs where I'm going to sit at a desk in an office somewhere all the damn time. Now, this heart issue was a result of stress, poor dietary decisions. One whole pint of ice cream is not a serving size. And then gaining a lot of weight because I was under, again, stress, frustration, all those things that we seek to alleviate here at Prosperity Homestead or at Inside Strategic Relations by better understanding how the world functions so that within that constraint of the world, we can function at a higher level. We can reach peak performance, not because we're trying to make a quota, not because we got a SLA, we got to close a ticket out before this afternoon or our boss is going to be breathing down our neck, but because it builds our financial security, our physical well-being, and that includes physical security, and our long-term health. Actually, some of the environments I worked in, we had actual briefings on what if a terrorist backs up to the building, puts explosives on the building because they're trying to get into a skiff, and they blow the hole in the wall. What are we supposed to do? What if they show up with a rocket launcher? What if we have an active shooting? Again, the corporate workplace is where I'm hoping to rescue you from, to help you escape from. Now, again, you can still make that big dollars. You can still work in that environment. It's now a mindset shift that gives you appropriate hobbies. It gives you outdoor activities. I remember talking with the supervisor. So I've had the majority of my supervisors have been extremely good. Now, I wrote a book called Corporate Kiss Ass and How to Handle Bad Bosses, that kind of thing. That is strictly focused on the very few shit poor managers that I've had. The majority of the people I've worked with, whether they're clients, whether they're managers, have been extremely good. And I capture that best practice from them and I put it in my books. But I actually had a manager, and so I took up farming as my healthy outdoor activity. First off, I got vitamin D. Now I find out that I'm such pasty white that I can't get too much vitamin D. So I've adapted my new style here. We'll talk about that in another video. That basically gives me loose fitting clothing that has a lot of airflow, but shades my arms. There's styles in India and Middle East and Japan and stuff that basically allow you to garden without getting crispy baked to death. But my point being is I had this manager and I said, hey, I'm going to take my 2 weeks. And I had covered 5 different people on their vacations. Okay. And so I'm taking vacation in the fall planting season or in the spring planting season, but typically in the fall planting season, which is not typical vacation time. Most people are taking vacations around the holidays. Most people are taking vacations in the summer. I would cover everybody else's work during those times so that they could go off and enjoy their vacation, because you know what? You earned the vacation time. Don't you deserve to enjoy it? And so I finally get my vacation off, and the manager says, hey, Justin, how can we contact you if something comes up? I said, oh, wait a second. Let me send you an email. I sent him an email that has a chart. And it says for each area of my work, which is tied to my performance evaluations, each area of work, who is going to cover my work? Because I earned their coverage. I covered them. They're going to cover me. Everybody's happy. Everybody's happy. This manager says, well, that's unfair. Why would you have them do your work while you're out? I said, because I did their work while they were out. Well, not really, because it turns out everybody who has covered me are senior level people to me. And that's because I covered senior level positions while they're out. Now, again, in all honesty and fairness, they probably had 4 or 5 people covering them, and I was probably covering just one area of their work. But this manager insisted. She said, hey, I need to be able to contact you while you're out on vacation. I said, no, it's a vacation. I am not going to be available. She says, well, what are you going to be doing? Now, this company really stressed environmental activities, outdoor activities. That was their part of their culture. I said, well, I'm going to be farming. And she said, what do you mean? I said, well, we're putting out plants and, cleaning up a garden and stuff. I'm going to be out in the middle of a field or on a piece of equipment or probably sleeping, but I'm not even going to have my phone on me. I'm not going to be available for any reason. Well, that's unacceptable. Unacceptable for me to take my vacation? Think about that, folks. You are getting shit on at work and you're earning time as part of your compensation and benefits. And then when it comes time to use it, you can't use it. I worked in one environment where the boss man went away and we had a plan. In fact, see, my good managers taught me this. The good manager said, before you go on vacation, have a plan so we don't have to call you. That's what the good manager says. Bad manager says, I'm going to need your number so I can call you. No. And then they'll use this one. Well, we're paying for your cell phone. Well, in fact, you're not paying for my cell phone because I have my own cell phone and I don't carry a work phone at all. See, a lot of you guys are going to get this. See, 10 years working 2 shifts, 7 days a week, carrying a pager, being constantly on call, being on that digital leash, I chose not to do that anymore. Now, it seems unacceptable not to do that because that's what some managers want. But my great manager said, Justin, if you're going to do a 72-hour shift, you can't come back in for 8 hours, at least 8 hours. I know there's going to be stuff to do. And I'd be like, well, I don't want this stuff to crash. I don't want it to be a fire later. I don't want to have somebody be upset because I did a configuration wrong or I blah, 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 blah. And the boss said, shh. If you have a 72-hour shift, you don't come back in for 8 hours. Take a break. Somebody else will take care of it. That's why you hand the shift off. You have a briefing at the end of the shift to hand it off to the next person. Well, once I got out of that environment, I would never have expected a manager to say, especially in a senior level position, that is very autonomous, very much, I could just call people on the phone and make more work for myself, or I could go work in different environments according to what needed to be done. We had different consent orders we're working on. We had different things that we knew needed to get done. I thought I was an adult. And as being an adult, I'm earning benefits, of which is the vacation. And you want my phone number so you can call me? So in this other environment I was at, I had this awesome manager, okay? And he said, everybody, we're going to have a meeting. I'm going to go to Disneyland. And we're thinking, well, that's awesome. And then he outlined all the things that need to be done, all the things that he does in the course of the day. Everybody knows what everybody does, okay? And then he divides the work up amongst us in a way that we're not adding more than 10% to our daily workload. So we're already given 100%. Now we're given 110%, but he told us to go 80%. And so now we're only going 100%. See? We got coverage because in an IT environment, a risk management environment, in a high-end, business environment, if you're going 80%, sometimes you're going 110% because there's a fire and you need to be able to readjust. But so he has this thing covered. There's no reason why he would be needed for anything. So he goes off to Disney with his family. He's been promising them this trip for years. He's at Disneyland. Everything is going smooth until one of the software development groups pushed some software out to some front-end web servers without running it through the launch process. So if you're probably familiar with this, you write software and then you put it in a test environment and test it, and then you put it in a pre-production environment to test it, and then you put it in production. Oh no, it was just a little fix, not a big deal. We're just gonna push it right out to production, and it crashes a corporate network. There was about 500,000 to 1 million people a day on this website. It crashes it backfeeds into the corporate environment because the front end was feeding a CRM system, and everything's just blown to hell. Everything's the managers are running around, what's happening? And us IT guys, we said, well, what was going on? And they said, we don't know, everything's failing, and we can't get in our systems. And we're like, okay, what was the last thing you guys did? We didn't do anything. It was your fault. It was the hardware. It's the network. And then what they do is they say, we're going to call the boss. The boss will get this fixed. Because see, we're doing what's called assessment. We're trying to determine, okay, was there any change made? Are you seeing hardware failures? What about, we're checking performance dashboards. We're checking node statuses. We're pulling up I think we were using Nagios or something at the time. We're pulling up Nagios, seeing all green lights. Where we were seeing the error was in the content validation check that was happening from an external source. And it wasn't everywhere. It was only in a few areas because the content delivery network, and I don't want to get too technical here, but the content delivery network was basically cached out enough of the pages that the end user wasn't seeing this problem. It just jammed up the CRM system. And then when all the monkeys start pushing on the keyboards, they, by the way, I have the freedom to be as silly as I want. And it's actually good for you. But here's the thing. They call the boss man, okay? We had this under control. And in fact, we were using Solaris with ZFS at the time. Come on, chicken. I'm trying to talk technical. So we used Solaris as ZFS at the time. And we could see there was a massive change in the code base. And we were rolling that back. They got the boss on the phone and made him fly back from Disney. And we heard this conversation. So he was dumb enough to take his phone. Smart boss, great boss, dumb enough to take his phone. And he answers it. And I hear him say, hello? And he thought it was one of us. Because we were supposed to check in with him to let him know everything was going good. But everything wasn't. Well, it wasn't going good, not because of our fault, because they pushed the software change. Long story short, they got him on a first-class flight. He leaves his family in Disneyland. He's on a first-class flight back to show up at the office. There's a rental car waiting for him. They wanted him to come directly to the office to fix this problem. And then we're hearing this conversation, and like within the hour, we were back online. And I said, look, we're back online. Another lead came in and said, look, we're back online. It was a code change. We rolled the code change back. Please use the test environment. Don't do that crap again. Look, everybody's desktops are good. Everything's clean. And the guy wasn't even on the plane yet. Now, I don't know if he learned this, but he wasn't even on the plane yet when everything was back online. Everything's back online. In fact, he called from the closest airport and said, hey, look, everything looks good. I'm online. What's going on? What's the status? Where are we at? Because a lot of times, again, the majority of my audience knows this. You're going to have like an all hands call. And on that all hands call, you're just laying out the stats. So he dials in there and we're like, it's done. They made a code change, pushed it straight to production. We backed out the change. Here are all the things that we're looking at. Interrupted his holiday vacation, and then the managers, and we just pleaded for this guy. Let him go back to Disney with his family. In fact, comp him some vacation because you fucked up his vacation. No, they had him come in the office anyway and look things over. Now, there's a couple factors in play here. First off, it's a trust factor. They either didn't trust that the supervisor had set stuff up, or they didn't trust us to get the work done, or in the mass delusion of chaos that was the system failure, because usually what happens is the system goes down and then everybody tries to use the system, which causes it to go down even more, and you have the snowball effect. Within that, they are still in that mindset of fear and the mindset of scared and I don't want to get blamed for this. And who can we blame for this? Who can we make responsible for this? Because he got a talking to. And he wasn't there when the problem hit. He wasn't there during the diagnostics. We had fixed the problem before he got back on site. We briefed him when he got back on site, and they still want to blame him for the outage. Now, we were ready to fail over to the business continuity plan. We were ready to fail over to another system in another environment, which is the backup system, because we fixed that thing so fast, it hadn't even had time to synchronize the changes from one platform to another. In fact, it wouldn't synchronize the changes because the system had failed, and we had put controls in place in order to keep a failed synchronization to come. So the content checks that we had, if there's certain words weren't on the pages we expect them to be, it wouldn't allow the synchronization to the BCP, and we were notified we could fix this stuff. Again, has this happened to you? Have you ever been called back from vacation? Unreasonable expectations, stuck behind a desk despite how unhealthy it is. Well, let me give you the alternatives here real quick. First off, you don't have to go hang out at a farm and do podcasts and videos and stuff. A lot of people don't like to do that. I found that my journey was helpful to enough people that I've been writing these newsletters for 15, 20 years now. Okay, that was my way of expressing and getting out. So you need to first, number one, find a way to express, package, and put aside the frustration, the anger, there's a lot of dumb stuff going on around you, and you know it, you see it, but how you respond to it matters. Reaction will always get you in trouble. There's been a lot of times where either I or someone else on the team has just had enough, and they go full falling down. They go full office space. They break, and they're like, I've had enough of this. And they're throwing stuff off their desk. I'm out of here. You guys are, and it ruins a career. Okay. Now that's an extreme, but in the day-to-day frustration, if you have an engineering notebook and you just kind of write down, hey, this is what I saw. This is what I liked about it. This is what I didn't like about it. Cause you got to capture the positives too. And just journaling, you're going to have a better context of the situation. So instead of freaking out because there's a problem or rolling this shit downhill, have you ever had a all hands call, and you get on there and it could have just been two people get this taken care of. Like if you're familiar with like source management systems, I've sat down and done a diff on something, looked at the difference between the previous version and the current version and saw where the change was. And then there was like a tab in there, and there shouldn't have been a tab in there. It should have just been a space. And there's a tab in there and a special character. And that was the only thing that was a problem. And the developer didn't know how to look into that. Now, again, the developer's under a lot of pressure. The developer's under frustration. They don't have the tools that I'm sharing with you right now, which would be to journal your experience and exercise into a notebook. It's a private notebook. Now, you don't have to write down, well, I've written down, so-and-so's an idiot. Here's the 5 dumb things that they did today. You don't have to write that down. But if you do write it down, you have to just know it stays on paper. It stays on paper. And again, in the heat of the battle, I've made mistakes, and I just hope you can learn from my mistake. Number 2 is you got to have a balancing activity. So if your work environment is sediment, sitting at a sediment like the dirt that settles to the bottom of a pond. If you have a desk job and you're stuck in front of a desk all day and you're not moving around a whole lot, you have to find counter activities. And it's not necessarily a standing desk. It's not necessarily extra bathroom breaks. It's not necessarily walking around the building or joining the jogging club. It is completely opposite. So if you have very mental activity and you're just constantly thinking, high level of stress, that's creating cortisol in your body. That's creating a lot of stress hormones beyond that, and also causing patterns in your brain that, depending on how you respond, could cause exaggeration and reaction, or could cause even depression. So what's the counter corresponding activity? So I sit at a desk a lot. So immediately after work, I'd go work in the garden. I like flowers. I like plants. I like nature. In fact, I invested in becoming a master naturalist, which was several months of training. I have a permaculture design certification. Whatever it is for you, it could be woodworking. It could be working on your boat. It could be, now the working on the boat one's kind of a trap, okay? Because if you're working on your car and you're working on your boat and you got a classic car or you got a really nice boat and you never get to go out and use it. See, the thing should be cruising with the car at shows. It should be enjoying your boat, bass fishing, or enjoying your boat out with a family. So again, we're finding activities that once we're done with the workday, we can decompress and leave it behind. Now, chicken. Many people are afraid to leave it behind because they're afraid to be left out. And the reason that happens is because they're not constantly looking for new opportunities. So I'm going to leave you with this. So in this podcast, I really want to show you that you're not alone if you're in a high stress work environment where you feel almost like a corporate slave because you're making so much money that you're afraid you won't make any money anywhere else. And that fear is exaggerated because, one, you don't have any other opportunity going on, because this opportunity sucked everything out of you. They want to know where you are on vacation. They want to get you on 72-hour shifts. They want to have a pager or a cell phone, or even digitally monitoring your desktop to make sure you don't take any breaks. They're constantly on you about there's active shooters in this environment. There's diversity and inclusion, equity. There's everybody's a team member and everybody should be able to contribute, and all these weird things that don't get the job done. And that builds up stress, and you become afraid. You become afraid because there isn't something else to go to, or it's better the devil you know than the devil you don't. But the truth of the matter is you don't have to go get another job. You could have a hobby. You could have a hobby that generates income. You could have an experience with a nonprofit organization. There's so many things that you can do, allowing yourself this a little bit of time to explore that. And then these are, again, balancing activities. There may be more active activities. Now, I don't particularly exercise. You can tell by my massive physique, and ultimately my debonair look. I tend to do heavy labor. So I tend to, muck up after goats. Now I tend to engineer the environment so I don't have to muck up after goats, but I'll dig holes and build gardens and do aquaculture and haul hay bales and stuff like that. Whatever it is, it's a physical activity. But I do know people that go skiing all the time. They like to mountain bike. They like to hike. It just doesn't need to be an activity that's going to cost a lot of money. Okay, because this is the last thing. The reason you feel trapped in a high income job is because you don't have passive income. You don't have residual royalties or licensing coming in. You don't have a good investment portfolio. You don't have a lot of growth in what's going on, or even the external. The economy is sucking. The political climate is unsure. And because of this, you're afraid if that one income goes away, you'll have zero. And that's true. That's true. If one is none, two is one. And so what we have to start doing is educating ourselves to cultivate wealth, to transform the income into wealth. Wealth isn't necessarily a nicer house. In fact, I'm massive, and we can talk about this at another time if it's interesting to you, but I am massively downsizing to the point of even going minimalist, not because I have to, but because I don't like to clean. So I stayed in a travel trailer that's right over here last night. Okay, and I have an option to stay in any one of these buildings. They're not finished yet. I could have camped in a tent out in the woods. I like the fact that when you wake up, you sweep up the floor, then you put some clothes on if you want, but then you're done. Like one of the best places I lived was a townhouse, 1,300 square feet. I could clean the entire house in 45 minutes. I enjoyed it because it was like, oh, I'm done with work today. I'm going to clean the house, and then I'm going to go take a shower and then go out to the country club, or I'm going to go take a shower and go play. Actually, I wouldn't always take a shower to go play tennis with friends or go to the driving range. But ultimately, I'm done with work, clean the whole freaking house almost every day, every other day, every 4 or 5 days. I could cook a meal in that kitchen. The kitchen wasn't very big. I could cook a meal in that kitchen, clean it up. Like going from the dining room table to the dishwasher, the house is clean because it's not a big house. And again, that doesn't have to be for you. You might have a bunch of kids or something like that. I don't know. You might have a bigger house that you own outright or something. But again, the fear that enslaves you to the workplace is a fear that you aren't going to be able to make it if that workplace wasn't there. It is almost a codependency with the workplace because it's been an abusive relationship so far. Now, I will tell you that if I had to weigh the good managers don't necessarily overcome the shitty, crappy, bad managers. And the bad managers, you know who you are. I've got a list. You were my inspiration for my writing about corporate kiss ass, and then the other book, How to Deal with Difficult People. So the bottom line is, folks, in order to be who you are, the most ideal version of yourself, you have to let go of the things that keep you trap. So that's why I mentioned the minimalizing. What I've discovered over the years is there's several times in my life where I think everything is going really good, okay? And I say, let's just reassess this. Let's go ahead and do a compression algorithm and see what's really necessary. And I would find out that 80% of the physical things that I had, 90% of the negative experiences I had, I could just let them go. Once I journaled about something, I could keep the lesson and get rid of the trauma. And ultimately, I was better in that case. And the one time that I didn't do these things that I know to do, and again, it can be hard. It can be difficult to give up. I see even a bad experience can become familiar. The devil you know versus the devil you don't. And so what I'm trying to convey here is that there is light on the other side. So bad economy, dumb political decisions, bad workplace, bad boss, everything can be complete shit. And you can step aside, first mentally step aside and assess the situation. Now, again, the journaling helps that. Having an emergency fund helps that. Having independence helps that. We help you get to the independence. And it's different for different people. But ultimately, being able to sit down and say, geez, I understand you want to, this is what I did with this manager. I said, I understand you want to have my cell phone. And I'll give you the number. It's not a problem. But if you call, don't have any expectation that I'm going to call you back. I literally turn off my cell phone. So when I'm feeding the animals, I am doing videos and stuff sometimes, but I'm deliberately doing the videos on my time, on my schedule, how I want to. But most of the time, I just feed the animals. I don't need to be interrupted. There's no reason why I should ever be sitting on the toilet and be able to hear a phone ringing, yet alone answer the phone. And so this is a different mindset, and we have to reprogram that brain that less is actually more. That having control over a small number of things, including our own mental and physical well-being, is more valuable than anything that can come to us from the outside world. Now, we're not going to get metaphysical or anything like that, but once you have the disconnect, and again, this is a positive thing. A lot of times people say, well, you're disconnected with the job. You don't really care. We don't really need you here anymore. No, it's not that kind of disconnect. It's knowing that, like a samurai, if the world is burning around you, that you're going to walk in, assess the situation, address the problems that can be addressed, improve the situation. You're going to be a force for good and creation to make the world better, rather than just farming the problem off to somebody else, rather than exaggerating it because it makes you feel like you're more important. We've had a lot of product managers just stop everything. My stuff isn't working. And my stuff's the most important. If you don't want me to call the boss, I'll leave you this one story. Okay, so I tend to be in senior level positions. I tend to have very low barrier to caring. I love to get the work done. My success is getting the work done well and getting the work done so that nobody else has to fix it. Okay. Guys yelling at me, my project's the most important. I'm going to call so-and-so. I said, don't worry about it. I'll give him a call. I'll let him know what's going on. And he says, well, what do you mean? And I dialed up the big supervisor that he was supposed to, because I was going to meet with the supervisor that afternoon anyway. I dialed up the big supervisor he's talking about, who's already assigned me work to do. And I said, hey, we got this program on the phone, and he's got an outage. And it sounds pretty important. However, we're working on these other things. Where do you see the priority for this item? And the other guy's screaming. The project manager's screaming. He says, okay, wait a second. How many people are impacted? See, we're talking about executive level thinking where everybody else is just freaking the hell out. And the supervisor tells him, you're going to have to wait in line. I got 2 other projects ahead of you, and Justin will decide where we're going from here. And I did what had a chance, because we have briefings and stuff. I did get somebody else started on his project, but ultimately his problem wasn't as big as he thought it was. Now, the problems that you face are always going to seem bigger than they really are because they're so close and up in your face. Again, I hope I've shared with you today skills to help you separate that work environment from the home environment so that you can have higher quality in your home environment, to separate that sitting at the desk and being constantly in demand and feeling special about it into being special, being important to your family, being important to what you're doing. And then ultimately, I hope I've given you permission to just step away. There's no reason somebody should call you on vacation. It's if you're working more than 8 hours a day and people are calling you on vacation, it's a failure of the organization as well as a failure of your own self-discipline. Now, again, there's reinforcements outside and promises of promotions, and we could talk about that at another time. But again, folks, I know this has been a long call, but if you stayed here to the end, you're in the right place, because it is as easy as saying the chicken's crowing and I'm not paying attention. I'm focusing at my task at hand, which is serving you, my subscriber, my listener, my reader. Thank you for being a part of what we do. I'm Justin Hitt at Prosperity Homestead with the chickens, and talking about issues that we cover in Inside Strategic Relations, where we help you transform business relationships into profits guaranteed. Those profits are beyond money. Those profits have to do with your health, your wealth, and your wisdom. Thanks for watching. www.insidestrategicrelations.com to ask your questions. And thank you for those who put in the question about how do I handle that I'm constantly on? How do I handle just the constant demand of the workplace and the fears associated with it? Again, you got this. It's business relationships. It's measurable results. It's outcomes you define. Start now. Thanks for watching.